Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by sophomore of the Yukon women's hockey team, Ainsley Svetek. Welcome to the podcast, Ainsley, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
No problem. And obviously, how are things going with you? The season ended about a month ago. What have you been doing since the season last ended?
So since the season ended, I decided to move home because all of my courses are fully online and I hadn't really been home since August. I came home for Christmas for a couple of days, but it wasn't long. So I got home a couple weeks ago, and since I'm from Canada, I had to quarantine. So I just got out of quarantine, back into real life, the gym, but just been busy doing school and spending some time with my family.
That's good to hear. And I guess, what'd you do during your quarantine? Because that seems pretty boring. I'd never had to go through a quarantine so far. So how'd you deal with that?
Yeah, that was my third quarantine, so it was not enjoyable. But we have a Peloton bike, so I've been riding the bike basically every day. And I had 3 exams within my quarantine period, so I had a lot of studying to do, but it was not fun. I do not recommend it.
Yeah, no. How do you train, I guess, during quarantine when you can't go to gyms or can't skate on the ice?
So my family bought a Peloton, so I love it. It's like the best bike I've ever used, and it's so like I just love that there's an instructor yelling at you and talking to you and like motivating you. And we also have a downstairs in our basement. We have a gym kind of set up, so we have some weights, and we have a program from Yukon that was sent to us at home, so I can basically do everything within my house or as much as possible. Some of it needs to be modified, but most of it I can just do from home.
That's good to hear. And obviously, how has online school been going for yourself? Is it a bit of an adjustment?
I personally do not like online school. I'm in engineering, so a lot of my courses involve a lot of hands-on lab work and a lot of learning that I could be doing a lot better in classrooms than on my own. So I find that online school takes a lot more of my time up just because I spend so much more time trying to teach myself things. But I mean, at least I get to be home now, but I would love to be back at school and in class.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I feel you can get more out of a class with the face-to-face interaction with the professor. And then if you have any questions, it's easier to access the professor during class rather than emailing and then waiting for a response.
No, I completely agree. I was just before this, I was literally emailing my teaching assistant about an assignment because it's just like going back and forth trying to figure out how to get it working.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. How do you deal with the Zoom breakout rooms? Because that's something else I can't stand.
Oh, I hate breakout rooms. I like it in certain classes because I actually learn more if like the TA is there and I can ask them questions. Like I think I spent 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon one time with my TA, just him and I like on a breakout room learning and it was so helpful. But some breakout rooms, if people don't talk to you, you just sit there so awkwardly and it's
Hmm.
terrible.
Yeah, and it's hard to get work done too, which is very annoying, especially when you have to get it done so you can get those participation credit.
I know.
So, like you just said, you are a biomedical engineering major. I feel so dumb talking to you now because that's such a hard major. What made you want to choose that one?
Um, Growing up, I always wanted to go into sciences or the medical field or something. And actually, when I had my injury in senior year of high school and I got the rod placed in my leg, I was really intrigued about like how that worked, what the process of it was, and I was like really interested to learn more about it. And then I kind of was looking at what I was going to apply for at UConn, and I was thinking like health sciences or allied health. And then I looked at biomedical engineering, and it was kind of like a little bit of everything I wanted to do. So I thought I would just try it out and see where it took me. And I was like, I can always switch, I can always move over if I don't like it, but I've really enjoyed it so far.
That's awesome. What's your favorite class in that major that you've taken so far?
Um, I'm actually taking an electrical circuits class and it's hard as hard can be, but it's really fun once you can actually do things and like you learn something, it's super enjoyable.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad school's going well. I'm glad you're out of the quarantine period. I know that's tough for many people. Now let's start off talking a little bit about your hockey season. So this season was very different. You had to deal with a lot of challenges. How did you deal with all the challenges that your team faced?
I do agree that the start of the year for me was very difficult the first semester because even though I'm from Canada, my family comes down to see every game basically. And my sister went to school with me last year. So it was a big adjustment to going from seeing them every weekend and being with my sister all the time to kind of never seeing anyone and us not being able to like even be with each other for some of it. Like at the start, we couldn't even be with all of our team. Like it was kind of my roommates and I were together and other rooms were together, but we couldn't all be together. So it was really hard. But I think once we were able to practice together and started playing and knew that it was going to come soon, it was like it changed the whole experience and the whole year for me. Like just being able to play a game meant so much at that point. And every time we got to play a game, like no matter who it was against, even though we played Boston College 5 times, it was just great to be able to step on the ice.
Yeah, definitely. I guess like what's the daily, I guess, routine that you had during the season? Like were you just going from your dorm room to the rink, or was it like anything else in between that you had to do?
So for me, a typical day, I would wake up and I would wake up, go get breakfast at the dining hall, to come back to my room, do my class, because I always have a morning class, and then we have practice 11 to 2. And then we would go to the gym and work out at 11 and then go right to the rink after. And then I would go back to the dining hall and then back to my room. So it was basically going from my dorm room to the gym to the rink and then back to my dorm room.
So it was kind of like a bubble setup in a little bit of a sense, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, that's kind of interesting to hear. And I guess like what was it like to play this season without any fans? And was that an adjustment for yourself? Because at Frady's, I like it a lot just because it feels like the fans are kind of on top of you when you play at that rank. What was it like not having that crowd noise there?
Yeah, I mean, we have some really good fans, and I know a lot of us have a lot of our parents come and a lot of family members, and even like local people who come and visit and come watch all the games. So it was really hard to not have those people there. But I mean, by the time we got to play games, like the rest of the world was still not doing anything and not able to even go out. And like at home, my family was still stuck in the house and like working from home and stuff. So I think at that point, I was just more focused on being able to play hockey at that and not really as concerned about it. But it is it's so much more fun when there's people watching and like the atmosphere is so much better. And it's just like exciting.
Yeah, and you had to deal with a lot of schedule changes as well. How did you mentally stay prepared for all those changes that happened to your schedule? And what was the key for maintaining flexibility? Because I know at the beginning of the year, you guys were scheduled to play, I think, Vermont. And then obviously that game got postponed. And then you had to play Providence like a day later. You found out you were going to play Providence. So how did you deal with all those schedule changes?
Honestly, after the first schedule change and us all being like, what? Like, this has never happened before. This is so weird. It was kind of like, this is going to happen all the time. And it was something that we had to wrap our heads around because it was something that we were like, we're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to understand that we might not be playing this team. We might not be playing that team. We might not be playing at all. So I chose to just every week, I would go through the same routine. And every Thursday, I would still have pregame meal and I would still do the same things. And then whoever was on the board on Friday, I would just get ready to play them. And I think that kind of allowed me to like get into a routine of having dinner every Thursday and making a good pregame meal and like hydrating and resting. And if our game got canceled, it got canceled and we practiced and we moved on. But I think that way like allowed me to prepare and to focus for every game a lot better.
Did you have to change your practice preparation methods for preparing for an opponent? Like, did you guys do any pre-scout, or were you guys more focused on just focusing on your own game and translating that when you played any team?
Yeah, well, in a typical year, a Monday, Tuesday practice is more hard, like drills, like more skating, more flow drills, everything like that, and skills. And then a Wednesday, Thursday is more power play, penalty kill, 5v5, face off stuff. So depending on who we play, those 2 days adjust. But I think by the end of the year, it was like Wednesday, do whatever, Thursday, do whatever, and we'll rewatch film and we'll do everything on Friday or the day before and just get ready for whoever comes. Because if we knew who we were playing and it stayed consistent, it was really nice because we could practice that on Thursday and get ready for that. But we always knew that, like Coach Mack would always say, so I hope we play tomorrow and I hope I see you tomorrow, but be
Hmm.
prepared for anything because it's just hard. Like he didn't know, no one knew, like anything could have happened within the 24 hours. So it was just, I think it was more of a, we're going to adjust as we go.
Yeah, and I guess like it seemed towards the end of the year you guys had more of a consistent schedule. Did that help your routine?
Yeah, I think it did really help. And I think being consistent for us was a really important thing because you always want to be adaptable. But I think that our team is very good at preparing well and focusing well. And I think the first couple times our games got switched, we were kind of like, we were just a little bit freaked out because that never happened before, which is completely understandable. But I think by the end of the year, we were just prepared for whatever came at us. And it allowed us to just have a little bit more structure.
Yeah, and I guess another question I have about that is, you 3-on-3 overtime was introduced to college hockey this year. As a defenseman, how did you adjust to having more space on the ice and having more offensive opportunities to create plays for your teammates?
Well, I think we went into 3-on-3 overtime a couple times. It didn't happen that often for us, but I like just practicing and working on it. It's such an adjustment because you play 3-on-3 when you're younger, but you don't really see it at this level. And it was just more for me being able to see the ice in front of me, but also be aware of who's around me because I'm a big I always count on the ice and who's in front of me, where's the other team to make sure that I'm like not in front of anyone and there's no forward sneaking behind me. So I think that with the 3-on-3, it just made the game so much quicker and it allowed us, like the defense, so much more space and like ability to do things. But I think our team, we got caught a few times just like getting overwhelmed with that. But it's a learning adjustment. Like this is the first year that's ever happened for us. So
Yeah, and as a defenseman, do you have to stay more defensively minded in those 3-on-3 overtime situations? Because if you make one little defensive mistake, it can cause an odd man rush.
yeah, I do think you need to be more defensively minded in that situation because you're right. Like you don't have your defense partner to cover you or to make sure that they have your back. But at the same time, I think that if you are aware of like I said, like being the last man and aware that, okay, if I go, like just make sure that you're communicating that someone else is covering, you can be so offensive too.
Yeah, and another thing about 3-on-3 overtime is possession of the puck is key for having success. How did you try to maintain possession of the puck, especially in the offensive zone, so you can create line changes and get fresh legs?
I know Coach Mack talked a lot about this too during the year, and we talked about bringing the puck back. And I think that was a big key. And when we started to learn that, it kept possession of the puck for us so much better in 3-on-3. Just because when we brought the puck back, it allowed two people to change, one person to change, and then we still kept possession. And like, yes, we lost like offensive possession, but we still had the puck and we were still able to reattack, which is more important in the end than just dumping it and changing and giving the puck away.
Now, talk about the freshman class. What did you take away from their performance this year, and just how did you try to help their transition into college hockey this year? Because you were saying you had to adjust to a lot of the new changes in college hockey this year. This was obviously their very first time in college hockey. So, how did you adjust to? How did you help their transition into college hockey?
Yeah, well, I actually lived with a freshman, and I know that it was so hard for, I think, all of them. Well, it was hard for everyone this year, just trying to adjust and also being away from home for the first time. And like you said, all those things that come with going to college. And I think that they were so good at just going with the flow, and they were so excited to just be there that their mentality was, okay, let's just go, let's just see where it takes us. And I was really we were really lucky to have a really good group of freshmen this year. And I think they were also just excited to be there and wanted to play and wanted to work hard. So it made the atmosphere on the team really good too, because it wasn't like we were struggling to keep them involved because they all just really wanted to be there.
Yeah, you had some really good freshmen this year. Obviously, your goaltender, Tia Chan, really stood out to me. Same with Jada Habish and Catherine Stockdale. Just talk about their performance on the ice as well.
Yeah, I think Tia stepped up huge this year. And it was really nice to see that as a freshman, she just came in with confidence and she just wanted to play and she wanted to continue growing as a player and as a person. And I think that she came to practice every day and worked her butt off. And that's why she got to where she was. And I think the same with Jada and Kat is just like they came, they wanted to be there, they were excited, they were ready to go, and they wanted to work hard and be better. And I think like they always were willing to do skill sessions and do more. And that's like one of the biggest things. And that's the biggest thing I learned this year too, is that like if you put in the extra work, it's going to get you where you want to be.
Now, you only had one freshman defenseman this year, Alexandria Ann Boyer. How did you try to help her on the blue line, especially since she was the only freshman on the team defensive wise?
Yeah, she is a very confident person in general. Like she's just, which I love about her, is that she just goes out there and she's going to do what she's going to do. So I think that really helped her adjust to college hockey very well because we knew that the games, like what we were playing, it wasn't a normal season. So it wasn't like we weren't going to make playoffs. Like we were worried about this and that. Like everyone made playoffs. So it kind of made it a different situation and a different type of year. So I think that allowed her to just come in and play her game and learn, which I think she did really well. Like she came in and she just, as a person, she was so happy to be there, so excited, like just wanted to be friends with everyone and have fun on and off the ice. And I think that she just fit right into the blue, like our group as D, and just everyone loved her.
Now talk about your team's regular season performance because you had a really good start to your year. Then you had a kind of a bad stretch of games towards the middle of the regular season, and then you ended off the season on a winning streak. What did you overall take away from this year's regular season?
I think the biggest thing I took away from it is that we could have set ourselves up better going into the postseason. And I think that we had some ups and downs, and we had some games that we should have won and we could have won, and we couldn't put the puck in the net some games, and we gave up a few chances that kind of ended up like, at the time we didn't really think it was going to mean much because we all made playoffs, but in the end when we had to play Northeastern in the semifinals, it kind of determined our fate a little bit, because it would have been nice to not meet them till the finals of Hockey East, right? So I think that the biggest thing I took away from the season was just that we need to come every game and play like it's our last, because this year it could have been, and it kind of sets us up for where we want to be.
Yeah, do you look at that series against Vermont when you got swept as like an example of what you could have worked on better?
Yeah, I definitely think that was a rough weekend for us, and I think that we knew coming out of that weekend that we needed to be better, and like that shouldn't happen. And no matter who you're playing, you don't want to get swept ever, and you don't want to lose. And I think that we all came out of that weekend just so frustrated with what happened, but it kind of showed exactly like we can't let that happen to us, and that's going to be critical to postseason. And that, like, those two wins, if we had won those two games, it could have set us up so differently because the league was so close.
Yeah, definitely. And another highlight from the regular season was the first series you played against Providence. You unfortunately lost the first game. However, you guys bounced back and won the second game in a shootout. Talk about bouncing back from that game, and talk about the shootout goal that Natalie Snodgrass scored. That was just going all over the internet.
Yeah, I think that the first game we were so excited to just play, and we just, I think it was hard for us to kind of get into our groove. Obviously, like people coming in like a lot of our freshmen had never played. Obviously, none of them had ever played a college game before. Getting used to like the atmosphere, the rituals, the pregame warm-ups, everything. And I think we came out, and Providence was really good this year. They had a great year. I thought we played pretty well the first game, like kind of coming together as a group. It wasn't bad. And then I think the second game, we knew that we were so close in the start. We could have just like turned it around. And Nat's goal was huge. It was
Hmm.
beautiful.
Awesome. Now, I guess what was your team's mindset heading into the Hockey East playoffs this year? You're playing Boston College again. You obviously played them last year in the playoffs as well. What was your mindset heading into the tournament?
Um, well, they beat us 5 times in the regular season, which did not feel good. And I think that going into postseason, we knew that it was one game. Like it was one game that was going to make or break at that point. So it was like we didn't need to beat them 3 times in a row. We didn't need to beat them anymore. It was just one game that we needed to give it our all. And they're a great team, and they had a great season too. But I think there was so much like anger and hatred in us just from the regular season and from last year and everything, that it's always a battle between the two of us.
Yeah, besides single elimination style, what was the difference between playing Boston College your freshman year in the playoffs versus this past year?
They're obviously different because the one game versus the series, but I don't think there was much difference for our team and the perspective we had, because I think in both years we came in just so excited for playoffs, and our team kind of flips the switch when it comes to playoffs. And I've noticed that in my past 2 years. Obviously my freshman year I was injured the whole first half, so I didn't really play, but coming in and dressing the second half and kind of seeing like the atmosphere on the bench and how quickly it changed when playoffs come, it's just really exciting. I don't think it matters who we play. It's been Boston College both times in the first round, but even our Northeastern game this year, like as soon as playoffs hit, it's just a completely different mindset.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that upset you had against Boston College. Your team played fantastic. I guess what was the defensive plan for that game? Because watching that game, you guys gave them really no offensive chances, especially in the second period, which is something I noticed. I know it was alluded to in the broadcast as well.
That was a great game for us. I agree. And I think that every single person bought into the game plan. And I think that was the biggest thing that hadn't happened all year, is that every single person knew what needed to be done. Our goaltending was unreal that game. our defense, we were blocking shots. We wanted to get the puck out, but we weren't rushed. And I think that was the biggest difference, is that we weren't panicked. We knew that it was one game, do or die, but like a mistake isn't going to change the whole game. And we made mistakes, but we recovered and we knew how to recover. And I think we were just resilient the whole game, and we worked our butts off like in the D zone, so that in the O zone we had that time and those opportunities.
Yeah, in the D zone, basically a lot of BC's chances were just from the outside. You guys really gave them no rebounds and no chances in between the hash marks. I guess, like, was that something you guys worked on in practice?
Yeah, well, we know that they have some really strong forwards who have, when you let them get too close or when you let them get in, it's just going to, you just don't want to give them those opportunities. And they have a lot of players like that we want to keep to the outside. But I think we worked a lot on just making sure that if we're giving anyone chances, they're not grade A opportunities. And that was the biggest thing in that game. And I think that made the biggest difference.
Yeah, another thing that impressed me about that game was your neutral zone play and creating offensive chances and good zone entries. What did you work on in practice that week to help the success that you had for that aspect of the game?
Yeah, I think their ice is really wide compared to ours. That's what I noticed when playing there. And obviously we've played there enough to realize that. So I think it was more about being patient in the neutral zone and regrouping well to open up the ice more. Because we didn't need to rush against them because they're a very fast team. So it was almost like if we slow them down, we don't let them get that speed. We kind of take the speed away from them and then open up the ice a little bit more, which I think worked really well for us.
What emotions were you feeling after that win, especially since you kind of just dominated them throughout the entire game?
Yeah, it was a great feeling to beat them. It felt the exact same as the year before. It was just one of those, like, it was kind of like a relief just because we knew that we gave it our all and we put everything out there, and it was kind of nice to get that reward back.
You then played Northeastern in the semifinals. You obviously lost to them your freshman year in the hockey's championship game. How did you use that loss to prepare against them in this year's playoffs?
Yeah, our loss in my freshman year was a lot different than our loss this year, I would say.
Mhm.
And I think in freshman year, we went in with the mentality that, oh my God, this is Northeastern. And I think that what changed this year was that we went in thinking it's just Northeastern. Like, we can do this. And they're an unbelievable team. And like, they played unreal in the NCAAs too, and I watched and I was cheering for them at that point because we wanted Hockey East to bring it home. But I just think that our mentality was so different this year, and that we knew that, like, it's just a game. It's one game. It's any team. Like, if we put it all out there, we can compete with a lot of teams. And I think that was the big difference.
Yeah, definitely. Just talk about that game and what did you overall take away from your performance as well? Because I think defensively, you guys kind of used the box formation against Northeastern. Because one thing I noticed about Boston College, and you were alluding to this, is they have a lot of power forwards that if you give them enough time and space, they can create offensive chances. Well, with Northeastern's offensive players, they're a lot more speed and skill based when they create their offensive chances. So I guess, like, how'd you like adjust to that?
Yeah, I think there were some big adjustments made after the Boston College game to Northeastern, even though both teams have great speed and great skill. But Northeastern, I noticed that they can cycle the puck and maintain it on the outside for a really long time, and they don't force things. Like, they'll make plays when plays open up, and I think that's like one of their biggest assets. So when you play them, it was just about being patient and the fact that, like, I would rather keep them on the outside and not let Mueller come anywhere near the net, and she can feed circles around me on the outside. But if she's not coming near my net, I'm happy. And I think that we all thought the same thing, and we realized from the first time we played them during the year that when we rushed and we chased the puck, it was like we opened up space for them and we opened up gaps for them to creep in. And I think in that game we were pretty good with, like, keeping a solid foundation in what we had in our D zone and not panicking and just, like, body on body and then worry about the puck because it's just going to slow them down.
Yeah, and they do have a lot of offensive defensemen as well. Is that something you have to adjust to when you play a team like that, especially a player like Skylar Fontaine, who obviously can score goals and play well defensively?
Yeah, definitely. She is an unbelievable hockey player too. And I think that when we play her, we have to know who's on the ice. And you have to understand that, like, when someone like that's on the ice, you need to be aware of your surroundings as a forward and a defense. It's not just defense. Like, I think that our forwards had to be more aware of her being on the ice because they had to be more aware of who they needed to slow down and who they needed to worry about. And she jumps in the play any chance she can get. So as a defense, you have to expect odd man rushes when she's on the ice because she's not going to hesitate. And I think that was one of the biggest changes to our game, is that we just had to be aware. And if we were aware, then we were okay.
Yeah, and you're also playing one of the best goalies in the country in Erin Frankel. She obviously won the Patty Kazmaier Award last week. I guess, like, how do you offensively prepare for a solid goalie like that? And does it help having great goalies on your team when you prepare for a goalie like that?
Yeah, it does. And I think our goalies were unreal this year too. And I think that they gave us a lot of chances that we wouldn't have had if it wasn't for them. But playing against Frankel, you just have to get pucks to the net, and she can stop a lot, but it's hard for someone to stop everything, right? Like it's going to happen. And we scored really fluky goals against her during the year, and that was kind of when we scored, but it didn't really matter. Like we got pucks to the net, and that's what it's going to take sometimes. And you're going to play really good goalies and really good players, but I think we just had the mentality like get whatever we can to the net and let's drive the net and see what happens.
Now, that game was a great back and forth battle. Unfortunately, you guys gave up a goal on the power play. What did you, I guess, overall take away from that goal? And what emotions were you feeling after that loss?
Well, when we got the power play, I think I was excited because obviously we were on a power play, and I was also nervous because I knew that their penalty kill is very strong, and I knew that they were an offensive threat still on the penalty kill. But I felt that we were ready for it, and I think that like it was kind of a fluke. We fell, we lost the puck, but I just think that we got really excited, and I think we kind of rushed the situation a little bit. And I'm not on the power play, so I'm not in that situation, but I think like rewatching it, everyone was kind of just like, we know what we can do, we know how we can play. And I think that it was just like it was a mistake that happened, and it obviously sucked that it cost us like this season, but I think overall it was just like it was an accident, something happened, we panicked a little bit, and they capitalized. And when you have their three best players coming down and you are three of the best players in the country, you kind of look at it, and when you're sitting on the bench looking at that, you're like this isn't looking good.
Yeah. And overall, what did you take away from this season? Because you have a really great team in UConn. As a fan, I'm excited to watch you guys play next year as well, just because of the performance you had this past year. And you obviously beat a good team in Boston College in the playoffs, and you gave Northeastern a good run for their money in the semifinals of the Hockey's playoffs, and they obviously went on to make the championship game.
I think that there's a lot of good that came out of the season for us, and I think there was a lot of learning that came out from us. And I think we grew as a team, and luckily we're not losing a lot next year. So it's just going to be better going forward for us. And the fact that we have a lot of players returning, so we have a good foundation already. And I'm not sure who our incoming freshmen are yet, but I know that it's going to be good for them to come in with a team that's really solidified already. And I think it took our team longer this year than it did last year to get together and to really bond. But now that we have that bond and we've played those teams and we know we can be in those type of games, I think that's just a huge confidence booster for us going forward.
Do you think having fans back in the stadium will obviously make a difference?
I do, and I think it'll be good for us. I just think our team is such a family environment, and a lot of us with all of our families coming back and being back in the building and just being there to support. And I know that all the families will be back next year because they all missed out a lot this year. I think that'll be really good for us.
Now, I want to transition and talk a little bit about the beginning of your hockey career. So, you're from Burlington, Ontario. What's it like growing up there, and how did you start playing hockey?
Burlington's a good place. Not too exciting, nothing too big going on. I started playing hockey because my dad went to university, played hockey in Europe, and my sister played hockey. So and I'm the youngest child, so I always wanted to be like my older sisters. So I think I started playing hockey when I was 4, and I started out playing boys hockey actually. So I played boys hockey for a couple of years when I was younger. I loved it, and then I transitioned to girls.
Nice. And who was your favorite player growing up?
I think Chris Letang was my favorite player growing up.
Nice. Do you try to model your game after his game? Because, in my opinion, you're one of the most underrated defensemen in Hockey East.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I think he's a very offensive player. I'm a little bit more defensive minded, but I think he's a really smart hockey player. And that's one thing that I really try to work into my game and make a big aspect of my game, because I really like to think the game, and like there's just so much that you can do in the game if you think about it, and if you can think about all these plays that can go on. So I really like that aspect of his game.
Now, before UConn, you played for the Stoney Creek Sabres. How'd you get the opportunity to play with that organization? Because I was just looking at some of their alumni. A lot of great players came through that organization.
Yeah, so like I said, I played boys, and when I switched over to girls, I wasn't sure where I wanted to play at the time. The Burlington Barracudas organization had a lot going on, and my sister had played there and had also played in Oakville, so we weren't really sure where I wanted to go. And I met the coach of the Stoney Creek Sabres, and I really liked him. I really liked the mentality they had, so I decided to go play there for a couple of years, and I loved it. And I loved it growing up, and I made some great friendships. I play against people that I used to play with, like Megan Carter, and it's just like I loved playing there. I loved the coaches. I loved the experience of like us all being together and kind of moving up together. So I played with a lot of the same girls for a lot of years.
Now, how did your time at Stoney Creek help prepare you for college hockey with UConn?
I think that Stoney Creek really pushed me to be better, and the people I played with pushed me to be better. Like Megan Carter is an unbelievable defenseman, and she's playing really well. I played with Kendall Cooper for Quinnipiac. So a lot of these girls that just go, and a lot of my friends that came out of there are all at Division I schools and playing hockey, and they're all still playing hockey either in Canada or the States. And I think that having that like motivation that everyone wanted to be better and to be successful and to win was really beneficial for me going forward and like moving up in hockey, because it made me have that like desire to be better and to win and to always like work hard.
Yeah, does the playing against, I guess, practicing against those type of players help your hockey development? Like when you see Grace Nellis coming through offensive rush in practice, does that help your defensive skills a lot when it comes to transitioning into college? And does that make that transition easier?
Yeah, for sure. I think playing who you play with and who you play against is huge. And I think playing with those type of players and learning how to match that speed in practice is huge when it comes to a game. And I'm playing someone just as fast on a different team, because it makes you learn about like different players, different aspects of players' games, and how to just adjust to who you're playing against.
Now, what was your recruiting process like, and why did you choose to go to UConn?
I actually got recruited at a pretty young age. When I was getting recruited, there wasn't as many rules as there is today about when you can contact coaches and things. There was, but they weren't as aggressive as they are now. So I got in contact with um, Coach McKenzie and Coach Casey, our other assistant coach, when I was in my freshman year of high school. So I was playing Bantam, or you guys call it, I think it would be U16 or U15. And that was when a lot of schools were starting to reach out to people. So I'd been in contact with a couple of schools, and my sister had been committed to UConn, so she was looking to go there. So I always had that idea that like it would be a really cool school and I wanted to see it. And that summer I ended up going to their camp for a couple of days with a couple of my friends, and I loved like the coaches. I loved the school. I walked around, I did a tour, and I loved everything. I just loved the campus and how like exciting it was to be there. And then I got offered my position and accepted, I think in like the August or the September going into my sophomore year of high school.
Now, I guess like why is the recruitment process more stricter now than it was when you were a part of it? I'm curious about that.
I think that it's a good thing that it's stricter, because it's so hard for anyone to make a decision. Like when you're a freshman in high school, you are not thinking about what you want to do in college and where life's going to take you. And you have no idea how much you're going to change in those years. Like I know I changed so much from my freshman year of high school, the senior year of high school, or even to now. And I think that when they didn't have all these rules in place, it was so much easier for coaches to offer people like these positions and these opportunities. And it's so exciting to see that. But it also doesn't give you as much time to think about what you want and where you want to go in life and what you want to do in life. Like I had no idea what program I wanted to take. And luckily UConn has everything. But if I had been in that situation in my freshman year of high school and decided, and I went to a school that didn't have the program I wanted to take, that could be a huge thing. So I think that now they make the process a little bit more difficult. It's probably not as nice for the coaches, but I think it's a little better for girls and guys just to be able to have more time to think about what they want. Just doesn't put as much pressure on them.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that. And I guess like what was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college hockey? Was it just the speed or was it the mental side of it since you're making quicker decisions with the puck, especially as a defenseman?
Um, for me, I think it was the speed in my situation, just because I obviously like the injury set me back. My injury set me back. So I didn't play my whole first semester of freshman year. Like I couldn't even practice with contact, like nothing. So I came to school and wasn't even skating until a month in. So I lost a lot of that speed over the year that I was out and the year plus. And breaking my leg really changed that. So it was a big injury and it was a big adjustment to my game. So I felt that like my decision making obviously needed to pick up, and the speed of everything picks up in college. But for me, it was just like I needed to work on my individual speed because I had lost and like damaged so much of that with my injury. So I think that the actual speed of the game was a big thing.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that. So you missed the first half of your freshman season. What was it like coming into the new team, like in the middle of the year? And I guess like how did you transition into college hockey because of that?
Yeah, it was hard. It was a hard adjustment to make. And I think that no one, it's not easy for anyone to get injured ever. But I think in my situation, it was really hard just because I got injured in March and I went to school in August and I still wasn't even healed just because my injury was so bad. And it was like, it was hard because I was going to school, wanting to learn and be a part of like, go to college and have so much fun. But I was dealing with like rehab and physio and going to massages on time and learning how to be a college student and trying to have fun with my teammates and be a part of the team. And when you just don't practice and you're not with the team every day, it's really difficult to kind of get involved like that. But I was really lucky to have my sister there because she had been there and she was in our senior year. So I had the ability to like make a lot of friends that way too. And also we have a great team and like it's a big family atmosphere. So I think that they were really good with like welcoming me and like including me, even though I wasn't in practice all the time or I wasn't always involved as much in game situations. But once I came back in January, I was just so happy to be there and to be on the bench or dressed. And if I got one shift or 5 or 6, it really didn't matter to me because I knew that I still wasn't anywhere near fully recovered. But I think it was just the coaches giving me an opportunity to feel like part of the team and to be back and to work on things because you're never going to learn unless you get into a game and you start like adapting.
Is that family atmosphere that you're talking about? Is that something your team works on, trying to build throughout the year, especially when you get new players coming into the team?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing about our team, and that's one of the reasons why I picked UConn. Just Coach Mack and Casey and Parker are just like such family people that they want everyone to be involved and they want us to be comfortable with each other. And we always talk about family and relationships and respect and like what it means to be a part of our team. And it's not just playing on a hockey team, it's being a part of having sisters that you don't have there at the time, right? And making new family members and just feeling comfortable with who you're with every day. Because I think when we have that type of environment, it just makes the game so much better for us.
Now, I wanted to ask you about what was it like playing with your sister Tristyn in college, and was there any sibling rivalry that happened during the year?
No, my sister and I are best friends. I am lucky to say that I have 2 sisters. So Tristyn and I have an older sister who went to Maine for field hockey. But we are very close. Like hang out all the time, do things together. We love family events. So going to school with my sister was an unreal experience. And even though I didn't get to play as much as I wanted, I chose not to redshirt or do anything because I wanted to play and play in a game with her, even if it meant 1 game, 2 games, or 3. And my first shift as a Yukon player was with her. So that was like an unreal experience to have. And I'll never forget that. But being with her, we didn't really have a lot of sibling rivalry because she was a senior. I was a freshman. There wasn't much for me to compete with her about. And I was also injured. And I think that having her there just made my experience so much better.
Yeah, and is it nice now because you get the extra year of eligibility because of the pandemic?
Yeah, it is really nice to know that I have that option just because I think I dressed for 14 games last year.
Hmm.
So a lot of girls got 30 plus and I got 14. And again, like I said, with the injury, I just wasn't playing in all of them. I wasn't getting a lot. So it's kind of nice to know that this year I came back and had the ability to play and get back into the groove of it. But now I have an extra year if I want to fully complete that. And it'd be really nice to do that.
Does your sister ever call you after games this year and talk to you about like what you can work on?
Oh, she calls me before and after games.
Hmm.
I normally get a phone call from her and a phone call from my parents, my father, and she actually watches the games in her room because she says that she needs to focus on it and she can't be around other people. And I always get a text or a phone call from all of them just saying like, you played great, or it's okay, today wasn't your day. Like
Hmm.
there's always tomorrow, keep your head up. There's a lot, like colleges, it's so fun to play college hockey, but it can be stressful too. And you're fighting for ice time, you're fighting for positions, you're working your butt off to get anything you can get and to be the best you can be. And I think that just having the support of family is huge in that.
Yeah, and does it help? Did it help like your freshman year transitioning to college hockey to have that like older sibling? I know you kind of alluded to it earlier when you were talking about your biggest adjustment you had to make.
Yeah, it was huge to have her there just with everything that happened with me and like going through so much more than just going to college for the first time. It was so nice to have her there. To always, we would eat dinner together a lot, and I'd always go to her apartment to hang out and sleep over. So it was really nice to just know that I always had that comfort to go back to.
Yeah, and especially with the social aspect, I think that's a big thing that people don't realize with student athletes is obviously you're balancing the academic and hockey side of being a student athlete, but the social aspect is just as important. So was it nice having like that older sibling to help you with that social aspect as well, I guess?
Yeah, it was really nice. And I made a lot of friends on other teams through her just because she had been there for so many years and met so many people. And then it was just like, oh my gosh, your little sister too. Like, and so it was really nice to get to learn and like connect with other people through that.
So we're now in the non-hockey segment of the podcast where I ask you some non-hockey questions. Now, one thing I noticed about UConn is you guys are very close with the other athletic teams on campus. Uh, which athletic team do you like to watch besides women's hockey, obviously?
So we we like to watch men's hockey. Our men's
Hmm.
hockey team did pretty well this year. They
Hmm.
had a good run. Lacrosse is a big one for us. We love lacrosse. I didn't get to watch any softball games this year because I left and they hadn't started playing at home yet, but we normally love to go to softball, baseball, lacrosse, and soccer. Those
Nice.
are
I heard they built a new baseball stadium. How does it look? I don't know if you've seen it before.
Yeah, it's so nice. They built a new baseball and lacrosse stadium and like lacrosse and soccer and softball.
Oh,
They actually
nice.
finished all of those this year, so it's super nice and it's really nice to be able to go and cheer on all our friends.
Yeah, no, is that something like UConn tries to advocate for? Because watching the men's hockey team this year, I saw you guys like in the corner of the stands. Is that something like you
Yeah.
guys like work on?
Yeah, we actually try to get like as many teams involved. I know like I lived with a softball player last year as a freshman because we all live with other athletes. So it was really nice to like meet a lot of people through her too. And we try to get like as many people to come to our games and we'll try to go to as many games as we can just because it's so fun to have like people cheering you on and like to have the crowds there. But with COVID this year, it was really hard to get into games and stuff because everyone only has a certain amount of tickets.
Hmm.
So we ended up getting into men's hockey games once we finally convinced our coaches to give us tickets and allow all of us to go. But at the start, it was a struggle. But no, it was really fun.
Yeah, no, it seems like you guys were having a good time because I was watching like the men's hockey games and I saw you guys. It was good that they helped promote you guys during those games as well because I think that's important because I think some of the men's hockey games get broadcasted on local television in Connecticut.
Yeah, and our assistant coach actually went on and was talking through one
Yeah,
of the
I
games
heard.
too.
Hmm.
And I think that was just a great experience for her and for all of us because it's right. Like your men's hockey is obviously so much more known, but I think that the women's game is getting there and like little things like that make a big difference. And a lot of people in Connecticut who watch the men's games, if they see that, they're more likely to come to the women's games too.
Yeah, definitely. Do you guys think you'll be the first school to win hockey's championships for both men's and women's hockey? Because I could see that happening. Because I know the men's team's close, and you guys are obviously close too.
Yeah, I do think the men's team had a really good run this year. I think that we did too, and I think we came close this year. Obviously, Northeastern, we don't want to come up against them in the semis. It would have been nicer to be in the finals against them. But I think that it just kind of gave us more confidence to go forward with that. And we, like I said, we have a lot of returning players, so I think that's a really good foundation for the next couple of years to come.
Now, what's your reaction to the women's basketball team losing in the Final Four?
Oh, that was a heartbreaker. I watched it. I
Hmm.
watched all the women's basketball games. I think they're just so good. Like they are unbelievable, that team. And I think that in that game, like they just got shut down and they just didn't get the luck in that one. I know it sucks to say that, but it just didn't go their way. But I think they had an unreal season and a great run.
What's your thoughts on Paige Beckers? And have you ever had the chance to meet her on campus before?
I have walked by her on campus, but I have never actually met
Hmm.
her. With COVID, it's a lot harder to meet people this year because a lot of kids weren't even on campus. So it's really hard to like meet and interact with people this year because we just had so many rules. But man, she is unreal. I
Hmm.
wish I had a freshman year like that.
Yeah,
She's
definitely.
just unbelievable. And she just seems like such a nice person, which is really nice to have that athlete known as a Yukon athlete.
Yeah, definitely. It's also crazy how like popular she is worldwide because I think she has like over like 200,000 like Instagram followers, which is crazy to think
Yeah,
about.
it's huge. I do not have that many and I will never be that popular, but it's okay.
Now, speaking of your teammates, who has the best style on UConn women's hockey?
Um, I hate to boost her like this, but I think Cam Wong has the best style.
Nice, nice. Who's your fashion icon? Because in my opinion, I think you have the best style on the team.
Whoa. I like that. I like to hear that. Who is my fashion icon? I don't know. That's a hard one. I don't know if I can say. I don't know if I have anyone who styles me, but having two older sisters when you grow up is a really nice thing to have because they tell you like, do not wear that out in public, and they're very honest people.
Nice. I never really had that. I'm the youngest sibling, but I have an older sister, so it's a different dynamic when it's a brother and sister versus just two sisters.
No, it is very different. Having two sisters is just it's a complete whirlwind.
Nice. Who's the funniest on the team?
um, Siobhan Lacey.
Nice. What's your thoughts on her TikTok account?
Oh, it makes me laugh. That
Mhm.
girl is something else. The fact that she has a lot of followers and is that popular on TikTok is just insane to me. But she's hilarious, so she deserves it.
That's awesome. Who is the best trash talker on the team?
Natalie Snodgrass.
Nice. Does she do it to you guys or mostly the opponents?
Um, I would like to say to us, I don't think any of us are really big trash talkers on the ice as much. I'm sure we all say the odd thing or two, but I think it's more like the jokes within the
Mhm.
room and just like getting to you. Natalie knows how to do that.
Now, what is something you wished more people knew about yourself besides being a good hockey player?
That's a tough question. um, I actually have to say, like, I love when people know about like school and like that we as athletes, like, we do go to school and we do work really hard in school because I think that sometimes that goes unnoticed for me and for everyone. Just because, like, I know right now when I'm in quarantine, I'm spending so much more time on school than anything else. So it's nice for people to be like, oh, you're in engineering, good for you. Like, you work
Hmm.
hard.
Yeah, no, I that's why I ask about because I think it's cool to hear about the school aspect, I guess, of being a student athlete.
Yeah, it's always student first, athlete second. Just remember that.
Yep, I understand that completely. Now, what is your biggest pet peeve?
um, Like my biggest pet peeve for hockey or in general?
Just in general, I guess mine would be like bad drivers. That bothers me just because like if you need to get somewhere and someone's just driving like 30 miles per hour in the right lane, it like really bothers me a lot.
Casey, mine actually that might be my pet peeve too is bad drivers, but not when they drive really slow, when like they don't know how to drive. Like
Oh yeah,
today
that's
I was
that's
driving. Today I
mhm.
was driving too, and someone literally just cut me off, like didn't even look. And I was like, it's 8:30 in the morning. You have nowhere you need to be that badly. Like just calm down.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I guess especially when like it's an accident that they could totally avoid and like you have to
It's
like slam on the brakes, it's like, oh my gosh. Because in Massachusetts, I don't know what it's like in Canada, but it's like I feel like we were probably not the best drivers compared to other places. So I don't
no,
know.
I have to say Boston driving is a lot different than it is here.
So
But I have to say that I like Boston driving better. I have really good family friends. A girl who used to actually go to UConn, Reese Macario, they're our best family friends, and they live in Boston. And I go to see them as much as possible. And driving through Boston, I'm like, wow, these people drive fast. They know how to drive. I get places quickly and
mhm.
efficiently.
Yeah, no. Well, fun fact for all the people that are listening to this, Massachusetts is the hardest state to get a driver's license in. So I got a driver's license in Mass, so I like to say I know a little bit more than other states.
There you go.
Hmm. Now, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
My goodness. Here's some difficult questions. Um, I think I would have lunch with Bobby Orr.
Nice.
Or a legend, a hockey legend who can just tell me what it was like back then to just like go through those days and play hockey through those days and just like how much different it was from the world than today.
Nice. I guess for me, it would, for NHL purposes, probably like someone like Austin Matthews, just because he has good style. He's obviously a great hockey player, so it'd be cool to hear like his perspective, especially since he's from Arizona, which I find it really cool. Growing up in a place like that and being obviously one of the best NHL players. And then like this is kind of a cheesy answer, but either the Yukon women's or men's hockey team. I think that'd be cool to meet you guys in person and have lunch.
Yeah, there you go. Next year when COVID's not happening anymore, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully,
I'm
when things
making
go back to
plans to
normal.
see you guys in person if things get back to normal, but I just have to wait and see.
Perfect.
Now, back to some hockey questions. What should be done to help grow women's hockey, in your opinion?
Um, I think honestly things like this, like where you're willing to talk to people who like I'm just a sophomore defenseman from Yukon and I've played sure I went to like Team Canada camp and I've been places, but like I wasn't nominated for Patty Caz this year, but it's just like talking and like learning more about women's hockey. And I think people wanting to learn and like wanting to celebrate women's hockey is such a huge thing because like the PWHPA is making such moves right now and like they're doing such a good job at growing the women's game and there's girls everywhere who play hockey. Like the girls' hockey game is not struggling. There's
Mhm.
young girls everywhere who want to play, and that's not the issue. It's the issue of like when we get to my age and older than me, like is are people respecting what we do as much? And I think that I can say yes, they do. But a couple of years ago, people didn't even know like there was Division One women's hockey. So I think that we've come a long way, but we need to keep like empowering college and after college because that's when women can keep playing the game they want to if we do enough work.
Yeah, and I guess like what would you say to those people who have like a negative mindset towards women's hockey?
I do think that the women's and the men's game are so different because of hitting. Like it changes the whole game and it changes the way they play and it changes everything about it. But I think that it doesn't mean that either one's better or worse. And I think that the women's game has so much potential and it's such a great game to watch. Like I was watching the Northeastern Wisconsin game and that was an unbelievable game to watch. Like I'm sure you watched it. And it was so
Mhm.
great, like great hockey both ways. Like it was exciting. And I would watch that just as much as I would watch the men's final. So
Mhm.
I'm like, obviously I'm a woman and I'm going through the situation, but I just think that like the men's games are so exciting. And then when I was here and wasn't going to college, I went to games all the time. But it's just like if we support women the same way, like they're both great hockey games and they both have the ability to do that.
Do you guys get a lot of support from the other student athletes at UConn?
Yeah, we do. Softball's our number one fan. I love
Mhm.
them. Before COVID, they came to almost all of our games last year. They would make signs. They would always be there. So they're great support. Soccer comes, lacrosse comes a lot too. We have a lot of like other sports who really want to support us and like who make it enjoyable.
That's good to hear. And what advice would you give younger players trying to pursue a Division One college hockey scholarship?
I would just like tell people to work hard for everything you want to do. Like nothing's going to come easy and not a lot's handed to you in this day and like in life. And I think that no matter what you go through, like in my situation, I was injured for over a year and I didn't play hockey. I barely walked. Like it was things can happen in life, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to get to where you want to go. And if you work hard, you can get anything.
Now, I only asked this question to only UConn athletes. What for all the fans that are listening? What would you tell the fans? I guess like myself and other people. Like, what message do you have?
I would just say thank you to all the fans because I know that we have a young family who always comes to our games too, and they have two young boys, and they have me over for dinner, and they're just so kind and so supportive. And it's just like people like you guys are the reason why it makes hockey fun. And it's like it's nice to know that people want us to succeed and want us to do better. So thank you.
Do you have any shout outs to any of your teammates, family members, friends? I guess I know we shouted out your sister a little bit, but is there anyone else?
I should probably shout out my other sister so she doesn't feel left out.
Hmm.
I'll make her listen too.
Awesome.
No, shout out to everyone who's always been there and be safe in COVID, people.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Ainsley. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure getting the chance to meet you and stay safe and good luck for the off season and for your school year as well. And I just want to let you know that you're one of my favorite players to watch, and it means a lot to me that you came on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so nice to be here and to talk to you.
Awesome. Now, one question I like to ask